Here is my story. About 38 years ago, I was born. I was born into a family of 6, into a church family where my father was a pastor, still alive, but he retired as a pastor. So growing up, I grew up as a PK, right? Living in the church. We lived in the mission house. And the only outlet we had at the time was music. That was the only thing we could do for fun anyways. There was no internet. There were no phones. So the only thing we could do was go into the storeroom, grab the Casio keyboards, and try to figure it out. So I did that growing up. And after a while, we did school like we all did. Primary school, secondary school, right? After a while, the music begins to get into your head because now you're playing at bigger events where there's a congregation of people, 500, 1,000, or even more, right? We used to call it area convention. If you know the Apostolic Church, you know what I'm talking about, where you have a lot of people. So you feel like, okay, you're on the stage, you're playing, everybody sees you. But deep down, you know that even though everybody is seeing you on stage, you really cannot see yourself. You really cannot see yourself, right? But because of the environment where I found myself, the type of preaching that you hear is focus on your heavenly rays and don't worry about anything on earth. That was what we heard growing up. Only, go to church. We did church in the morning and evening, every single day, except for Saturdays. 6 a.m. we're in church, 6 p.m. we're in church, because my dad was the pastor. I had no choice. I needed to be there. Even if I wanted to do something else, I had no choice. And the only thing that kept me going was the music. The music. That was the only outlet. Fast forward, I needed to get into higher institution. We all know the situation of the country and the struggles of getting into school, right? I fought with that for a while the music was still keeping me going. At some point, if you know Ilupeju very well, I was literally playing for 2 churches at the same time on Sundays. Someone is thinking, how? How is that possible? I'll tell you how. Because the 2 churches, they're using the same complex, right? And they are right beside each other. So, praise and worship, I go into the first one, play. After praise and worship, I don't come out. Go the second one, play praise and worship. After praise and worship, sharp, come back, play choir administration, come out, come back, play choir administration. You get? And then now be timing, just going to check because there was no phones. I can't be texting anybody. Alpha, pastor don't finish, make her come in. You have to be timing. You just walk out, go and time. Okay, pastor see they preach or this one. No lele, go back to the other one. So I did that for a while. And while I was struggling to get into school, a few months into having conversations with different pastors about choosing a career path. I remember at the time, I'm not going to mention him, but I'm going to mention the name of the church for anybody who knows the church. The church is called Headstone Church. They started at Ilupeju at the time. So this was the church where I was playing, and then I was also playing at a Redeemed Church at the same time. So the pastor at the time called me and said, young man, you need to sit somewhere. We don't see you. Every time you just disappear. Where are you? So I was explaining things to him. Sir, this is my situation. And he said, why not think about studying music if you love it that much? I said, study music, yeah. How do I tell this to my parents? So he actually sowed that seed in my head that it was possible to actually study music. And he gave a reference to one of the most amazing drummer that Nigeria has ever produced, K-Sticks. He made reference to K-Sticks. At the time, K-Stick was the MD of Daystar. So if you know that time, you know I'm talking about 2010, 11, thereabout. So he said, K-Stick is doing it. He has done it. Why not follow that template? I said, yeah, really? There's someone who has done it. So I caught it. And then the first school of reference I could find at the time was Peter King's College of Music in Badagry. So I found it, and I just ran with it. Fast forward, I got in there. While in there, because it was like a hostel, you have to live in there. I met a bunch of other guys that some of you know. I'll mention one, Toby Alapo. That was where I met Toby Alapo, who is now my very good friend. So we lived together in there, dined together, trying to learn music. Now, while we were in there, the only thing we could see was the music. Please follow along. Was the music. That was the only thing, nothing else beyond the music. So after Peter King's, fast forward, a friend in Ghana reached out and said, why not come check out Ghana? Ghana is getting better. This was close to 2012. Come to Ghana, come check it out. Like, okay, let's go. So I had an opportunity to just go to Ghana for 2 weeks. And I ended up staying in Ghana for over 4 years. Right? So I got to Ghana. I went to the church on Sunday. It was a Saturday night road trip. I met the musician. At the time, it was KICC Ghana. I met the musicians, and then the saxophonist said to me, would you want to stay here? I said to him, yes, I would love to stay, but on one condition. If I gain admission to study music, the only thing I still had in my head was the music, nothing beyond the music. So fast forward, I got into school, everything started so fast. I started living in Ghana, I started meeting a bunch of musicians. I could not find friends outside the music sphere. The only friends I could make were musicians. Fast forward, I finished in Ghana, came back to Nigeria. I wanted to go big in the industry. At the time, Toby was already the MD of D'banj, who was my friend. So I thought, okay, this is a good entry point. I wanted to be a vocal coach, for the industry. That was my entry point. So I was planning that, and then from nowhere, the trip to travel came in. There's a church that needed an MD abroad. Would you love to do it? I said, why not? What am I doing with myself? Let's go, So I made the trip in 2016. Now, I made the trip thinking only about music, nothing beyond the music. This is my story, and I want you to follow along. Please, bear with me. So I got to the US. I started the church thing, I just continued the same template from Nigeria. Play music in the church, teach the choir, prepare all the songs for all the services, and all of that. Fast forward, 2017, somebody told me, why not think about something else? Think about tech, at least. You are in the Western world where you can actually learn. You have access to everything. I said, okay, is this really possible? Right, so I started researching. Fast forward, March 2018, I passed my first IT certification. I remember that day was a Saturday. I had that exam printout result. And I said to myself, I think I can do this. if I could study for this, then I can do it. That was in March. In April, I passed the next certification. In May, I passed the next certification, right? And I kept on going. I kept on going. As we speak, I have 27 certifications under my belt. Now, I'm sharing this because I allowed myself to accept the advice to think beyond the music. Now, fast forward, 2020, I got my first IT job. It was entry level, it was basic, but it was good because this is my opportunity to practice what I've been studying for. So I took it. I started working. But COVID was already doing its thing, and then COVID came. By March 2020, everything was shut down. Mind you, up until that point, the only thing I did was music. I played in a church full time, and that was it. So COVID came, everything, shut down, no more church services. That income was shut. And then the only income that could sustain me at that time was the tech, right? So at that point, I realized that if I had not made that shift in my mind that this was possible, I would have been stuck. Maybe I would have lost my mind. Maybe there will not be today. You guys will not be seated here today. There will not be a vision to share the story. Here's the moral of the story. Wherever you are in your journey in life, wherever you are in your journey in life, please, I beg you, do not conclude yet. Do not conclude that I am only a keyboard player. Do not make any conclusion that the only thing I can do is just play the drums. Do not make any conclusion that the only thing I can do is play the saxophone or direct the music or just stay in church. Please allow this moment to encourage you that just if maybe I can do it, then you can. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is COACHTOPH. I'm the founder and the president of HNA, Able Network Africa. I currently work in tech as an associate director for a company. Beyond the Music was inspired based on my experience as an instrumentalist and a musician over the years. I believe that it's time for musicians all across the globe to begin to think about other ways to build sustainable careers and build multiple sources of income. I believe that this is a very important topic within our community because we've been silent for too long, and now is the time to begin to preach the need for everybody within our community to be sustainable over time. We believe that one source of income will not cut it. If we're going to build wealth and become the description of what the Bible says as a good man that leaves inheritance for his children's children, we need to build multiple sources of income. And that is the reason why we need to talk about sustainability within the musician community. I'm expecting that this conference will be a blessing to everybody that is here today, or if you're going to watch online afterwards. I believe that everybody in this room today and anybody who's going to watch will begin to think differently and begin to see the need to build sustainable careers so that you can leave inheritance for your children's children. After the conference, we're going to build a community where everybody that belongs to that community can understand the need to build sustainable careers and build multiple sources of income. Thank you.